Can I call the meeting to order?
Yeah.
Yes.
First on the agenda is any public comment? Okay, seeing.
Well, hold on there. Lauren Scheuer and two people raised their hand. Lauren Scheuer and Linda Gay.
Oh, I don't.
Yep. And I think someone else had logged on earlier, Brett, before you were on, that may have wanted to speak as well. Someone from 80 Mechanic Street.
Could, well, we can start with
Yes.
who would like to begin first?
I'm Lauren Scheuer. I'll begin if it's okay.
That's okay.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I'm unmuted.
Good?
Yes.
So I'm Lauren Scheuer of 2 Fowler Street. And I just want to say that when I moved here 27 years ago, one of the most appealing factors in choosing Upton was that the town had 1/3 forests. I just thought that was so cool. And I don't know how much forest we have now, but that appealed to me. So over 27 years, I've seen the town make some good decisions, some good changes, and some bad decisions. And I'm speaking now about the enormous 4-story apartment complex that's planned for the corner of Mechanic and Fowler. I just want to say that I don't want to look back and see that we made a huge mistake in allowing this development to affect our road safety, our water quality, our wildlife, and the small town feel of Upton, which is just a really special place to me. So I would like to urge the selectmen tonight to vote to place the warrant article 23, I believe it is. Vote to put it on the warrant for first right of refusal for purchasing that land. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Is there any other comments?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I think my hand is still up there. It's
Yeah.
Linda.
Hey.
Did someone want to say something?
Oh, that's all right, Linda. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I've got a couple of things I want to say, and I just wrote them out. I'm Linda Gay, and I live on Fowler Street. And first, I want to thank the board for allowing me and all of us to speak tonight and at all the other meetings. I'm talking tonight for the many, of which we're logging in as we speak here. I'm just one of the hundreds of town residents who oppose the development of an apartment complex on a parcel of land with frontage on Mechanic and Fowler Streets. I think we all know which one we're talking about. Our numbers keep growing throughout town. Not one of us wants to see a developer build a development of this magnitude. The more we learn, we definitely do not want it built under the auspices of 40B. As you guys know very well, a friendly 40B disregards many of the protections of the established bylaws and regulations of the town. An unfriendly 40B torches them. These regulations have been written for many reasons, but most importantly to protect the town's growth, whether it's a single family home or a beautiful project the size of Upton Ridge or what we, anticipate with Governor's Landing. Our members, I would say, are collectively working day and night. We're trying to educate ourselves as much as possible on the myriad of issues that, impact the parcel itself in terms of, its value. And part of that research took us back to the presentation that Saxon made on December 14th at your meeting. We feel like Saxon's intent, and I think you guys do too, was clear. They were coming to town to build a friendly 40B, a huge multifamily complex, and on one of our most beautiful country roads. At that meeting, the developer said, and I'm going to go ahead and paraphrase from the transcript, we'd be thrilled to do it, build the 320 units. But if you don't want to, please tell us. Because, hey, no way, we don't want to do this. We won't spend any money and will politely say thank you very much. We totally respect that. And Saxon was pretty clear when they said, we do not want to do a 160 unit project. We like to do a big project. At that meeting, you seemed unified in saying no to Saxon Partners and that a 320 unit apartment building was too big for this winding country road. And by no, I mean, from looking at the tape again, that you were saying no to, some of you to the project, and I think Steve, you to the size of the project in particular. Well, that is still true for all the obvious reasons. That night, it seems Saxon might walk away with their very big project, but that didn't happen. They came back with a second letter and offer, and it was delivered to you guys stating, and here I do quote, "We have been informed that the purchaser intends to convert this property to residential use consisting of a multifamily apartment development with a minimum of 200 units under the provisions of 40B. The updated offer, unlike the earlier one, sought no accommodations as a friendly 40B would have. All of the stipulations and compromises, all of that collaborative spirit was gone. The offer language looks pretty much like any real estate P&S, unless you know what an unfriendly 40B implies, which I know you guys do. An unfriendly 40B takes governance of the project out of your hands. It circumvents town bylaws, ordinances, and regulations, and as importantly, ignores the wishes of the growing number of residents, not just the neighbors, from all over town. Tonight, our goal is to see Article 23 on the final warrant for the May 5th town meeting. Let the voters continue to learn more about the impact, of a 40B, learn about the options that are uniquely available to us as this parcel comes out of 61A, and let the residents decide this parcel's future with their votes. And I also want to thank you, the three of you, for just being so supportive as we sort of wander, somewhat blindfolded through this process. You guys have been incredibly thoughtful in terms of even just giving me time to say this, and Lauren, and really can't thank you enough. So thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
I would just like to, this is Bill and Agneta Knott from 80 Mechanic Street. Everything that Linda said, we feel also, but we moved here because it was a wonderful town. Everybody is so friendly and lovely. Our street, people walk their dogs, their children, their bicycle on our street. We cannot imagine what it's going to be like with 200 or 300 more cars going through Upton. Besides the wonderful wildlife, the walks that connect to Grafton Land Trust, it is just absolutely wonderful. Then we worry about our taxes going up, new schools, EMTs, police, new roads, sewer, and water. And so please, we would love to have this on the warrant so we can actually vote. And my husband's saying it's going to cost millions to put this in that we're going to have to pay for. A lovely, lovely area with beautiful wildlife. So we would just please put it on the warrant. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments.
Maureen, there's a woman, Meredith Houghton, would like to speak, Maureen.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think one thing we should just remind everybody that is on this call, and a lot of people may want to speak, this is a discussion topic for later in the meeting, and we're going to bring this all up over again. So there's some counterpoints that people may like to make. So I'd encourage everybody to stay on the meeting, because the board can't really dialogue back and forth with you at this point. But by all means, anybody that would like to speak, please raise your hand and step forward and speak. But I would remind you to just stay on the meeting so that we can really hash this through at the later point in the agenda when it's a discussion topic.
Yeah,
And
that's-
maybe the people that are on here now that want to comment might want to wait until that discussion comes up. And that's on the
So
5.5.
I don't, Steve and Maureen, I don't think you guys can see the same thing I'm seeing, right? So there's a place where people are raising their hand. There's literally only 2 more people that want to speak at this point. So I think if we allow those 2 to speak, they're representing the other 127 people that are on the call. Obviously, to your point, Steve, there are other folks that have different opinions, but I think the folks that have raised their hand for public comment, it's probably worth just letting them speak. If there were 40 people with their hands up, I would feel differently. But.
I didn't see
Absolutely.
those, Brett. Thank you.
I absolutely agree.
And who would like to be next? Meredith?
Yeah, Meredith, go ahead, please.
Sure, and I'll be brief, and understood this will be discussed later. I'm also here for the Mechanic Street Realty Trust project, which will be discussed later. My name is Meredith Houghton. I'm a land protection specialist at Sudbury Valley Trustees, a regional land trust. So I just wanted to introduce myself up front, and I wasn't sure if there would be able to be dialogue later on, so I just wanted to introduce myself and offer that if there are questions or if at any point it makes sense for me to be involved in that discussion, please feel free to call on me if there are questions that I might be able to answer. And this is just coming from a place that I've been talking with a lot of the partners that will be speaking as part of that agenda item. So we've been working closely together. And Sudbury Valley Trustees has worked on other conservation efforts in Upton in the past, most recently the Kelly property at Peppercorn Hill. And so this is something we've been through with some of you folks before. So if at that point you'd like to pull me into the conversation, please do. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. Al
Thank you.
Holman?
Yes, I just wanted two issues, 2 questions. First of all, you've answered the first question, if there'll be an open discussion later on in the meeting when this comes up. And what I hear you saying is it'll be open for discussion at that point in time from citizens, whoever want to talk about it. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
Great, okay.
Because that is in the part of the agenda where we have no public comment, Maureen. So we should just make sure that we're very clear about this particular item and that folks have the opportunity to
So I need to
speak
talk.
now or speak later. So.
They have no public comment, but they can ask questions after the board has discussed. the
Okay,
item.
so what you're saying is we can ask questions, but we can't have public discussion about it. Is that what you're saying, Maureen?
Yeah,
Well, you would by asking your questions. That's part of the discussion, isn't it?
Okay, so we can debate it at that time.
no,
So-
this isn't.
I don't think
I
it would
wanna-
be a debate. It's just
Right.
what we're trying to decide whether we put the article on the warrant or not.
Well, that,
And Mr. Holman, if I may, and Maureen, I apologize, but I just, my perspective on the process is that this isn't a town meeting. The debate about this topic should happen on the town meeting floor. In my opinion, that's what Maureen and Steve and I are going to discuss and determine is whether or not this particular warrant article is going to show up on the warrant. That's the discussion, not whether we support it or don't support it in general as a project.
okay, so then based on what you just said, now's the time for people to make any comments for or against this issue. Because if they can't make comments for or against when you have the discussion among yourselves, then that kind of neutralizes anybody who wants to say anything opposing that position. Correct?
We certainly don't want to neutralize anybody. I think what you're hearing is Maureen and Steve and I doing something, recognizing that there are 134 people on the call. Typically, we wouldn't allow for or have public dialogue or comment during board discussion parts of the agenda. So I think that's what we're working through now. It's unprecedented that we have 134 people on one of these calls. So I think we obviously want to hear from folks both for and against putting this on the warrant. At the same time, if there's that much interest in debate, to me, it would be very obvious for at least myself that if there's this much interest, we should let it the discussion and the debate happen on town meeting floor and not on a Board of Selectmen meeting where the work at hand is whether or not we put it on the warrant.
Well,
I
that's,
think that's the question.
Yeah, if I could just,
Excuse me. That's the question, Brett, whether it goes on the town meeting to get to a debate.
right.
I believe that's where Al is coming from.
That's correct. The debate what I'm talking about is the debate about whether or not it goes on the town meeting warrant. Whether or not the governing body debates whether we buy it or not, that's a whole nother discussion, debate, which happens on the town meeting floor. So the long and short of it, I really believe that if you're going to allow open discussion or debate about whether or not it's going to go on the warrant, you need to let people know that that it's going to be able to do that when you get to the line item on your agenda. If not, then now's the time for people to have that discussion and debate.
This is only a comment period, which is comments only and no discussion.
Right.
So I understand. So my view is that the Board of Selectmen meeting about whether or not to put this on the warrant is not, there's not a public debate about the board's decision about whether to put something on the warrant or not.
I think it should be, if I could jump in,
It's a debate amongst the board members. I want to hear people's varying opinions about this. I think we understand there are different opinions about it. And I think that as board members, we're obligated to work with our constituents to bring that to the table. It's the Board of Selectmen's discretion to put warrant articles on the warrant or not. And I think it's the three of us that will make that decision. And I don't know that we need to have 130 people debating back and forth about whether or not this should be on the warrant.
Oh, so let's see if I understand what you're saying, Brett, just so I can be clear about this. You're not interested in the input from the voters who elected you on what their opinion is on whether or not it should be added to the warrant.
With all due respect, Mr. Holman, you know that is grossly inaccurate, and I do not appreciate you representing that appropriately. I don't think this is the discussion we should be having, Mr. Holman. We can talk about this offline.
No, my point is that if you're going to allow discussion about the issue of whether or not it goes on the warrant, when it gets to the
Just muted him.
Al, you're muted. Somehow you're muted.
My expectation is that if you're going to have it as an item on your agenda, then it should be open. Then you should allow debate or discussion on that particular line item, because it does have an impact on the voters and the people that show up. That's my point. I would hope that to be the case. If not, now is the time for input and comment from the public, and it should happen now. So if you're going to say when it comes time for our agenda item, we're going to allow questions but not any comments, then don't postpone the comments until then. You see what I'm saying? I think Marie understands what I'm saying. I think Steve does too.
Yeah.
Give me just a second to chime in real quick.
Go.
I think that where we have a topic that is rather delicate, people are very passionate about the topic. I think I honestly believe that there's a lot of mistruth out there. And I think that we really need to I think it's two parts. I don't want to oversimplify it. I don't think it's just a matter of whether or not we put it on the warrant article, or put the warrant article forward to the warrant. I think it's also a conversation of making sure the correct information is out there, making sure that everybody that has an opinion get that opinion in, so that everybody on this call can at least understand all sides of the argument, or at least make sure that if there's a part that is not going to be brought up at this particular juncture. Again, this is not supposed to, Board of Selectmen are not supposed to be responding right now. We're supposed to be just listening to comments. But I feel where we have so much activity, if someone wants to add something to the conversation, I'd like to hear it. it's a matter of semantics as far as, whether or not it's appropriate or not. I feel like, you know what? I would rather be engaged with people. I'd rather people say he's a hard-headed SOB than say he didn't care what I had to say. So,
Thank you.
And I agree.
That would be-
Wait a minute, Al. We're going to
and
stop.
Al,
it right
the
here.
hard-headed comment was actually referred to you. No.
Oh,
thank you.
thanks, buddy.
No, we are gonna stop it right here, and I will take opinions or a comment in support of putting it on the town meeting. I will do that, but I feel that because there's 134 people on here now, not to get repetitive. And just ask, any new information, any difference of opinion would be good, but not to get repetitive.
Oh, that's the way it should be, Maureen. I'm not arguing with that.
Okay.
My question is, and I think what I hear you saying is that when it does come up on the agenda, you will allow discussion about it. That's what I hear you saying.
Well, I want to know what people's opinions
Okay,
are.
great. That's my question. So that being said, I'll wait.
All right.
One
Can we
one
move
last
on from the public comment?
I have to respond, Maureen. This will be my final response. I just want to be very clear to Mr. Holman and others that I absolutely expect and want to hear from anybody that wants to share a perspective about this issue and about any issue as it comes up. And any implication otherwise is false. My phone number is 617-275-9916. You can watch a recording of this meeting if you didn't get that number. You can text me or call me anytime because there's nobody that wants to hear from you more than I do. Believe me. Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you, Brett. We'll move on from public comment then. And we have guest presentations, and the first one on that at 4.1 is the chairman of the town manager search committee, and it'll be an update from Scott Van Ralton. Scott, are you on?
Maureen, just give 1 minute. They were waiting for the public comment period to be over. As you know, they're in a meeting right now, and they just need to recess
Okay.
so that they can come here. So just give us 1 second for them to come on.
All right.
I think Scott's he's already logged in, so he just has to flip the switch.
Okay.
Yeah, they're coming right now.
Scott?
Good evening.
Good evening. Are you ready to give us an update on the town manager's search committee?
I am. So through the chair, members of the board, we have met last week, and we are meeting currently, going over the resumes and essays. The first meeting, we sifted through 31 resumes, selected 10 individuals to receive 3 essay questions. They had a week to fill out those essays and respond back. This evening, we are going through the responses. From the 10 that we had selected to receive the essays, we received 8 responses, and 2 individuals have withdrawn. Our current schedule is to select a group for interviews in the coming weeks. Next Wednesday, March 22nd, the Monday of the 28th, and the 31st. Our goal is by the end of the 31st, the end of this month, to submit 3 names to the board for your consideration. And then we're asking that you, as a board, find an appropriate time to interview those 3 candidates.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions, Steve or Brett?
Yes,
Great
just a quick question. Mr. Van Ralton, you said out of the 10 that you selected, 2 had dropped out. Were they interviewing in other towns? Do you see this as a point in time where there's a lot of job openings and you could lose additional candidates? Or do you think that the 8 that you have to work with is a good talent pool at this point in time?
So I believe one was in a process in a town in Central Mass. The other individual, I am not sure as to why he or she did drop out. The pool that we have remaining of 8, we feel as though we do have some very strong candidates. Through some research, we did find out that a few of them are in other processes. So I would definitely urge the board to move forward quickly after we submit the names to you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Any other questions, Brett?
No, great work. We appreciate everybody's time. We know you're working very diligently and spending a lot of time on this in a very short period. So thanks to you and the rest of the committee.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Have a good night.
You too, Scott.
Have a good evening.
Next is the 4.2 ambulance service cost analysis update. Is Chief Bradley or Chief Marchand here?
Hi, good evening. Chief Bradley, I'm here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, hopefully the board receives my Upton EMS cost analysis report, which they got by email today. Tonight, I'd like to go through a PowerPoint presentation just to highlight some of the points in that report. Hopefully, I'll be able to share my screen.
So, Chief, you should have if the PowerPoint is already on your screen, the first thing up, you should be able to hit the up arrow next to the microphone. And it gives you a place for the windows, and then you can just click the screen that has the PowerPoint on it.
Okay.
And we can see it. You are good to go. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, as I had mentioned, this is the ambulance cost analysis report, and this report has been requested by the board and the finance committee for a number of years in support of purchasing a new ambulance. For many years, it hasn't been completed. In the last couple of months, we put a group together to get through this report to show the cost of running the ambulance service and some important points. So we'll jump to the presentation here. Cool. So this is the safety committee, public safety members, and also citizens that met over the last couple of months to put this report together. And first, we'll start off with a history of the EMS here in Upton. It originally was a town-based volunteer service that started in 1941. Later on in '79, it became one of the first licensed ambulance services in Massachusetts. After that, 1988, we began adding full-time career firefighters and EMS providers. At that time, advanced life support, ALS, was provided by Milford Regional Medical Center to most of the communities in this area. So that was from 2008 to 2014. 2010, fire and EMS were combined under a single point chief. And that's really an important aspect because all of our firefighters are, or paramedic EMTs are also firefighters. So they have dual purpose. Our current staffing includes a combination model. When I say combination model, I mean it's call and career members working together to provide that service. So look at our ALS background. Our first 2 firefighter paramedics were hired in August of 2014. We moved to a licensed ALS department in November of 2014. At that time, paramedics worked 14-hour shifts, 6 days a week to provide advanced life support. 2 additional paramedics were hired in 2018. We transitioned to a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week ALS coverage. Full-time EMTs cover 6 days a week, 14 hours a day, and a call day on Sunday to assist on EMS calls and also fire calls. At present, Upton maintains 2 ALS ambulances and as 4 full-time paramedics, 3 career EMTs, 2 call paramedics, and 6 call EMTs that provide service. Primarily run a paramedic basic staffed ambulance service. So looking at our call volume per fiscal year, we average about 1,100 calls. You'll see a little dip from FY19 to FY20. That was due to COVID. There was certainly a drop off in ambulance runs for obvious reasons. But you can see in this chart, all the blue shades are EMS related calls and the red is for fire related calls. And so why is that important? Like I said, approximately 1,100 calls for service annually, 700 plus are EMS, and approximately 300 are fire. Now, if you split those calls up, it's 68% for EMS and 32% for fire over a 7-year average that we looked at. And the importance of that is our people are dual purpose, fire and EMS. So when you're looking at the cost for the EMS service, what we did is we used that ratio when looking at salaries to come up with an EMS only cost. And we'll get to those numbers shortly. So why is call time relevant? You can see our peak times are during the day, anywhere from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. And that's when we have some of our career staff working during the day. It said it's a combination department that also relies on call people, but unfortunately call people generally are not available during the day. So we have much of our staff is focused on daytime during peak periods. So response time, why does it matter? So there's a list of items here, most of it for cardiac issues and why it's important for ambulance service and also first responders to be able to respond immediately. First of all, in a cardiac issue, brain death starts to occur within 4 to 6 minutes after cardiac arrest. And cardiac arrest is reversible, can be reversible if treated within a few minutes with an electric shock or ALS intervention. Few attempts at resuscitation succeed after 10 minutes. So the NFPA sets standards. There's no law in place that talks about what response time should be. So we rely on a national standard that's set by the NFPA. And their recommendation includes personnel, equipment, and resources to deploy at the first responder level with automatic external defibrillators and treatment at a high level. And the standard also recommends arrival of an ALS company within 8 minutes of the response 90% of the time. So our response time for EMS also includes law enforcement and call personnel in our model. So police officers arrive on scene, they're equipped with AEDs, airways, bleed control equipment, Narcan, and that response is coordinated so that all members of the team arriving know what to expect on an emergency scene. We're fortunate that we have a close relationship between police and fire. So when police arrive on scene, they're starting CPR, using AEDs and other life-saving equipment. They know what the paramedic and the EMT is going to be requesting when they get there. So we're fortunate to have that partnership. So here's a look at Upton's response times. And you'll see our average for calls, the response time from when the ALS unit acknowledges the call to responding to the scene is about 2 minutes. You can see in the blue shaded area is 0 to 5 minutes. The yellow is 5 to 10 minutes. And there's a few outliers here. Some of these calls are mutual aid calls, or we're responding to other towns. Those are factored into these averages here. Response time from unit notified to en route. And most of our response times are in the 0 to 2 minute range from the call coming in to the units out the door. Again, there are a few outliers. Those are second medical calls, third medical calls, or overnight calls when there isn't as much staff. our patient ages, the average age you can see, and 56% of the calls are 60 plus, 50 to 59 is 71%. And why are those important? Because what we're seeing in the town of Upton has been an influx in over 55 developments. We have 370 units that are either been built in the last couple of years or on the books to be built in the town of Upton. So we expect that our need and calls for service will increase over the next few years. So now here's the important part. Here's the Upton EMS operational costs. And if you remember the 68 to 32 split that I mentioned for calls, and that was really the way that we went about getting you the cost for EMS. We have FY20 through FY23. I will focus on FY23 costs to start with. We have revenue of $270,000. This year in FY22, we had a forecast of 250. Right now, we're on track to hit that 270 mark. So that's what we used for this exercise. And if you look at the expenses, all the expenses that have asterisks next to them, that is using the 68-32 split, allocating 68% of those salary and wages towards EMS. The other 32 is allocated towards fire. The items that do not have asterisks are items that are related just to the ambulance itself. So at the end of the day, you look at a general fund contribution of, it was $330,215 is what the town is spending on EMS service based on this cost breakdown once you consider the revenue and the expenses. Are there any questions on the operational costs? Now, there are some things that are not included. The fire chief, public safety director, some of the benefits are not in this cost breakdown. If the ambulance service was removed, the town would have to rethink on how they're going to respond to fire calls and what the staffing needs would be. So that's something we left out of this exercise. I will stop there and answer any questions on costs if there are any.
Yes, if I may, Chief.
Yes.
Thanks for taking the break. As I'm looking at the table that we have in front of us, you have $50,000 plugged in for the new ambulance.
Yes.
I assume that you have a formula as far as depreciation schedule on that ambulance. And are you looking at that number, and are you including we're running two ambulances, so I have a couple questions. Are we including both ambulances in that number of 50K? And then my other question is, when you're running an ambulance service as opposed to just fire service, is there additional insurance that fire and EMS has to carry to run those extra vehicles and provide that extra service to residents?
I'll try to answer the insurance question for you. I think everything is captured under our professional liability insurance for the town. So I'm sure that has a factor in the insurance. And certainly adding two vehicles to the master list of vehicles, I'm sure there is a cost there. Now, the $50,000 number, that number is really not in our budget for the ambulance because it's generally purchased out of free cash. So what I decided to do was to put a cost in there for the new ambulance, and that is a $350,000 ambulance cost, which is scheduled to be on the warrant for this year. That vehicle over 7 years, that's where I came up with the $50,000. So replacing an ambulance every 7 years, having two ambulances to run. So we would keep an ambulance for 14 years. We would get a new one every 7 years. Breaking that down would be about $50,000 a year just for the purchase of that ambulance.
Okay, I see that. And I guess my other question is, would the per diem medics and emergency, drivers that come in and medics that may come in or basics that come in, is that captured under, let me see, hourly comps, or how do you have, what category does hourly comps cover?
So hourly compensation is for our call people, their hourly rates and wages throughout the year. So they are combination employees. They do fire and EMS.
I see. Okay. So those figures, that 76,799 is the projection for what it costs for call people to come in and staff the ambulance.
Well, that is using the 68-32 split. So taking the full line item for hourly call people and allocating 68% towards the ambulance. That's where that number comes from. So it would be approximately a little over $100,000 for that line item in the budget, but we are using a ratio to show just the cost on the EMS side.
Okay, I see. I have no other questions at this point. Thank you.
So next, we tried to take a look at private service costs, and the only way we could really do that for this exercise was to look, compare apples to apples, so to speak, is to look at the service that we're providing now, which is 2 ambulances, full-time paramedics in the station to respond to calls. We reached out to one of the leading private ambulance providers to get an estimate. And the estimate that they gave us was between $750,000 and $900,000 annually. And also what comes that is Upton would not receive the $270,000 in revenue that we see now. So what affects ambulance bidding really is call volume, hospital, nursing home, and other non-emergent scheduled transports is where they make private ambulances will make a lot of their revenue, and also reimbursement rates. Now, unfortunately, Upton is really not that desirable because the call volume isn't that high, and we do not have nursing homes or other facilities which would have frequent runs to increase that revenue. So our bid price, especially on providing a service at the level that we provide, would be fairly high. So this next slide, I call this the Upton EMS Advantage. What do we do that a private service would not do? So in Upton, we're using expanded protocols with special attention to patient care. We operate the following expanded protocols. These are CPAP and BLS providers, albuterol for BLS providers, check and inject, epinephrine for BLS providers, TXA for paramedics, and ketamine for pain control and sedation for paramedics. So some of those things you would not receive from a private service. Now, this is possible because we have consistent oversight and immediate clinical oversight from our staff here. Some of the other benefits that we have is our interagency cooperation benefits. Like I had mentioned earlier, the EMS works closely with law enforcement, especially in the area of rescue task force, active shooter hostile event response. The state of Massachusetts is getting ready to roll out a mandatory ASHA response for police and fire to work together. Fortunately, the town of Upton has already taken steps to supply their fire and EMS personnel with ballistic vests and helmets to be able to respond for critical incidents at businesses, schools, and so forth, and to work together as a rescue task force, removing potential victims from warm zones under security from law enforcement. Also, school safety and training and hazmat response. We partner with our law enforcement friends. Senior Center and Social Services. The Upton EMS is very involved with the services down at the Senior Center and public health, COVID-19 clinics, and also some of the task force in Central Mass, especially over the last 2 years. Our paramedics and EMTs have been very involved in providing those services. And again, public education is also a service that the town can provide. So municipal versus private. So here are some of the, I guess, the pros and cons, you could say. So what do we have in our municipal service? We have a stable workforce. In the private sector, they are experiencing really difficult times getting EMTs and paramedics, and is really at a critical level now. We have been very fortunate. We have been able to hire and train very good people, and they've stayed with us. We have expanded protocols, which I already spoke about. On the private side, we would have little or no control over the protocols or policies. On the municipal side now, we have fire protection. All of our paramedics and EMTs also provide fire protection, respond to fire calls, especially during the day when our call staff is not available. We have 2 ambulances for response. For the private service, we'd probably get 1 dedicated to the town of Upton. Other ambulances would be a little bit further out, which would increase response times. We have law enforcement personnel and call personnel working together as a force multiplier, getting an AED on scene within minutes of the call, which we know is likely to have success in the call. And, our community partnerships that we have formed. One of the problems we're seeing in the private world now is because of staff shortages are such a problem. Many private ambulances are failing to provide the service that they agreed upon. And you can look in some of the local towns. You may have seen some of the headlines that is going on now in the EMS world. So here's just a sample of some headlines that you may have seen recently about the shortages and the crippling effect that it's having on ALS and response. And the next slide, I don't typically like to compare town services. I think everyone survives or has their own merit. But this was kind of striking to me as I went through this process and looking at costs and revenues. So I will present that just for food for thought. When you compare emergency medical services with a general fund contribution of $330,000 versus waste removal, what the town spends $350,000 for waste removal, I would say our emergency medical services are a pretty good option, a pretty good value for the dollar. That is the end of slideshow. If there are any questions about the report that I provided or the presentation, I'd be happy to take those.
I just want to tell you, you did an excellent presentation, very detailed, very informative, something that the public probably had no idea what was consisted in EMS response times, services, and what we have got going on with your law enforcement and fire and EMS working together. Thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, I have no other questions. I did have a comment or two, but we've got a busy agenda, so I'll catch up with you in the next couple of days and just dissect a few things out of the report. But very good job. Thank you for the update.
Right.
I would no questions. Great work as always. I would only offer that any question that existed in my mind around the value of these services to the town of Upton very clearly are answered by this research and analysis that was done. So I'm a huge fan and supporter for us not privatizing these services for so many reasons that you've noted. So you have my full support and recognition for a job well done. And the ALS service, the paramedic EMS service, the firefighters, everyone's doing a really nice job, and I wouldn't make any changes to that model. So thanks, this is great and helpful, puts my mind at ease.
Thank you. Just a note, I'd like to thank the committee for their input and their hard work on this, this important task. More importantly, I'd like to thank all the members of the fire and EMS staff The work that they do, especially over the last 2 years, has just been incredible. When many of us were in lockdown, they were out answering calls and COVID-related calls. So, kudos to them. They do a great job. So,
Yes, they do.
that's it. So, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have an update from the Mosquito Control Board, and it's discuss request to submit aerial spraying opt-out application to the state. Do we have someone from the Mosquito Control Board?
Yes, Marcella Stasha here.
Okay.
I chair the committee. Thank you for listening in on us again and having another vote. What we need now is a vote from the select board to submit the application, and this vote needs to be certified. So I'm just going to read off what is required as part of this vote so that it's on the record and that you know what you're voting on. We must hold a meeting of the select board at which a vote must be taken indicating the municipality's intention to opt out of spraying, conducted by the SRM, the state, forgetting what the, I'm sorry, the spraying conducted by the state in effect. The meeting should include input on the plan from local Board of Health, which we have had, and the Board of Health has approved the application. And we should allow for public comment, which is the opportunity we're providing here tonight. I have posted this as a public meeting under the Mosquito Control Board. So any member of the public who'd like to make a comment on this is welcome to do so tonight. This vote should include the date and time of the public meeting, the Board of Health was consulted, that public comment was allowed, and whether the municipality is opting out of all spraying or only certain spray activities such as aerial spraying, which is the case. We're only opting out of aerial spraying done by the state. So if anyone has any comments to make, through the chair, if you are willing, if you can accept comments, that would be great.
Are there any comments?
I see that someone has raised their hand, Tracy Higgins. And if I could just make a brief comment, Marcella, it may be helpful if you could email us exactly the format that the motion needs to be. And we've got a busy agenda, so maybe if you could email a particular order. Again, you mentioned the timestamp, date, and things of that nature. But if there's some acronym that needs to be included in that motion, if you could send that to us. Again, I don't want to speak on behalf of the chair, but I want to make sure we get the motion correctly.
Do you have a sample of the motion, Marcella?
So,
It isn't. I don't have a sample motion. I can send you what the paperwork that they that's on the application.
If I could.
I believe you've already received a copy of when we first started the process of filling out this application. So I hate to put this off to another meeting because we are under some pressure to get it submitted sooner rather than later.
I don't think this is, was Derek trying to speak up, or somebody that knows? My understanding is that we don't need any special verbiage on this motion, just a motion to opt out of the state mandated spraying, but I may be mistaken. Was there someone that was going to answer that?
If I could, through the chair to Selectman Simons, he's actually correct. There's no specific language. Marcella's here, as she pointed out, from the Mosquito Control Board, asking the board to make a formal motion to allow the Mosquito Control Board to submit an application for the town to opt out of aerial spraying. That's what the request is tonight, and that's That's as simple as what the motion needs to be.
So when the minutes are done, Derek, we'll do the date stamp, time of the meeting, and who's present in the vote, right?
Right, right. So the
Okay.
town clerk can certify the action taken tonight via the minutes.
Thank you, Derek. You put it much better than I could have. But that said, we would still be wanting to hear from the public. So if there are any members of the public wanting to make a comment, this is their opportunity.
I'm looking to see if there's any hands up.
I believe there are two, Chris Murphy and Al Holman is what I'm seeing, and there may be two others, so.
Tracy Higgins, her hand was up as well.
Okay, so Maureen, do you want to select the order in which people speak?
Tracy first.
Sure, I'll just make it really quick. When some of the aerial spraying was going on, I called the state epidemiologist to ask some questions to get a little more information on how the spraying worked. And in particular, I was concerned about how it impacts predators of the mosquitoes and whether you were going to end up knocking out predators and then having a follow-up of a big bad year of mosquitoes following when you spray and sort of getting you into that cycle. The epidemiologist said that's something we need to look into. We don't really know. And that really was a red flag for me, that they don't really know, that they haven't thought about that. So I appreciate that this is, that you are looking into this opting out and that they are continuing to monitor and do other things. So I just wanted to say thank you for working on this.
And who else had their hand up? Did you say, there's
Chris Murphy or Al?
Chris Murphy, yes, she was next.
Yeah, so I just had a question on, is there any historical data on spraying versus not spraying and cases of mosquito-borne illnesses in the town that we can go on to make this decision?
It varies from year to year what degree of risk the town has in terms of diseases like Tripoli and West Nile. And those are ones that we hear a lot about. We did not see any evidence of them in this community in the past mosquito season. These things come in cycles, so we really don't know what is coming, if anything.
I see. Yeah.
But the state makes a decision about whether or not there's a high enough risk to do the spraying. And there, some years ago, they did do that, and not a lot of people were very unhappy about it. So that's how we came to this point where we are looking to opt out of aerial spraying should they wish to do so.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yeah, and if I could just kind of piggyback on your comment, Marcella, this has come up twice at annual town meeting, and the voters have always voted to opt out of spraying. So it has been brought before the town on 2 occasions. So, and again, as you mentioned, there was a year, maybe 4 years back, where there was some high cases of Tripoli, and the state kind of overruled all the towns and ended up spraying statewide. So a lot of residents, including the 2 that have just spoken, were very upset with that the townspeople had asked to opt out, and the town, or the state, I should say, actually overruled us and, treated or sprayed the town haphazardly. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear that when the town voted to opt out of the regional mosquito control program, that was one thing that's directed by the municipality's choices. When the state moved in and did aerial spraying, that was separate from the regional control, and that's what we're voting to opt out of now. We've already opted out of participating in a regional mosquito control program, but this is strictly to opt out of the aerial spraying, just to be clear.
All right, thank you. Now, we have Al Holman.
Just wanted to say input that the Mosquito Control Committee did a great job in cutting through all the details and coming up with something that hopefully will work for the town of Upton. We didn't, and to clarify what Marcella said, we didn't opt out at the town meeting to vote not to spray aerial spraying. It was a whole different situation. It was a regional group that did measurements. I have another question. Is this supposed to be a posted meeting, or is it just, or do you have to have a posted meeting?
I did post it. It's posted under the Mosquito Control Board. If you look at the agenda, it's co-posted with this select board meeting. So,
Okay, okay.
Just in case, I don't know. It's just in the instructions, it says it has to be a public meeting where the public is allowed to speak.
Oh, okay. Didn't say it was a posted. Didn't have to say it was a posted meeting. Okay.
This meeting is a posted meeting. The select board meeting is, the Board of Selectmen meeting is a posted meeting.
Yes.
Right.
Marcella is representing the Mosquito Control Board.
Yeah, as long as it's not a posted.
And they aren't deliberating anyway, so they don't need to post according to the open meeting law.
Yeah, I posted it just in case there was any question about it. And I also want to be clear, this is different from a public hearing, which needs to be advertised. A public meeting. And specifically, a public meeting is when we're on this topic that the public is allowed to make comments and ask questions. And so anyway, that's just to keep things clear.
Mr. Bates? Is he still here? I guess not.
I see hands raised, or I think I see a hand raised, but I don't.
Mr. Bates' hand is raised. That's the only one left that I see.
Well, I got William Knott, and I don't have a picture. Yeah, but you don't have mine. I agree. We should opt out of the mosquito spraying.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. William Knott.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, William Knott, 80 Mechanic Street. The last time they sprayed 2 or 3 times, we lost all our dragonflies, our fireflies, and the bats kind of disappeared. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Gotta keep it short.
Seeing none, you're looking for a vote tonight, correct, Marcella?
Correct. One that will be certified. I'll be talking with Kelly about that, and we'll add, we just need to have made the statement that the Board of Health was consulted and the public comment was allowed. If you vote to accept that and accept that we will submit the application on behalf of the town, that would do the trick.
I make a motion that we authorize the mosquito control group to submit the application opting out of state mosquito spraying. Brett Simus, aye.
I would second the motion. Stephen Metellian, aye.
Maureen Dwinell, aye. Unanimous action by the board. Thank you, Marcella.
Thank all of you. I appreciate everybody's input.
Great. And thanks to the residents who voiced an opinion. Good job.
We have appointments on the agenda, and the first one is for the Trust Fund Commission. I believe the only application that we got was from Dave Ross. The Trust Fund Commission is down 2 people, right?
One person.
I think at this point we appointed someone at a couple of meetings ago. I want to say it was either the beginning of February or the end of January. We appointed Gary Doherty. So there is only one seat available. However, it's election season and there is a contested race for that particular board, and all 3 seats are up for election. So I would be opposed to appointing someone at this particular point in time until the process of drawing ballots has concluded. In case there's residents out there that want to run for this seat or have already pulled papers, I'm not sure, but I don't think it would be prudent at this point to appoint someone when the election, where it's an elected seat and the election's 6 weeks away?
The appointment is only good until the election, but they have business to conduct too. It would be better if they had a majority, or they could have unanimous votes of 2, but that doesn't always work out. I wouldn't have a problem appointing someone to the next election.
Right. It has no effect on the election whatsoever if you
No.
appoint somebody as to fulfill the remainder of this term. So that's a moot point, in my opinion.
I disagree, but again, I don't find that it would be useful to appoint somebody this close to the election. If somebody wants to serve in that capacity, they should just draw papers for the seat.
I'm quite sure that Mr. Ross has done that.
Okay, do we have a motion, Brett?
I make a motion that we appoint Dave Ross to the Trust Fund Commission seat for the remainder of the current term, up until the election in several weeks. Brett Simus, aye.
I'll second that. Maureen Dwinell, aye.
I will abstain.
Majority action. We have next DPW Building Committee. We have Dan Lazar and Andrew Leonard, Jonathan Moen, Dave O'Brien, Rick McGuire, John Westerling as applicants. Have you all had a chance to read the applications?
Yeah.
I have. How many seats do we have open?
Is there just
7.
1? 7.
We can appoint all of these folks, Steve.
Yes.
Okay, Brett, go ahead.
I make a motion that we appoint Dan Lazars, Andre Leonard, John Mose, Moan, Dave O'Brien, Rick McGuire, and John Westerling to the DPW Building Committee. Brett Simus, aye.
Second the motion, Stephen Mattelli, aye.
Unanimous action by the board. Next, we have the Lake and Ponds applicants. There are 3 seats available and 10 applicants. And I was wondering, I would like to do the process of, you all have had a chance to read all the applications, correct?
Correct.
I have.
So would each member of the board like to appoint or nominate a person?
I mean, I went through there were 2 to me that seemed very obvious who were actually qualified. One is a PhD scientist with 40 years of experience in marine toxin study, plant physiology, and he lives on Lake Wildwood. So then there was also a woman who has a bachelor's in analytical chemistry. She's done training on water quality surveys, stormwater runoff points, goose management, watershed studies, etc. So those 2 seemed quite obvious to me. And then the third one I feel like is, up in the air, but those were at least 2 that I would want to put forward if they weren't on others' lists, which I would expect they probably were.
Would you like to go forward and appoint those 2? If we could have a motion. Any questions from you, Steve?
I did have the first name I think that you're referring to. I'm not sure about the second name. What were the 2 names, Brett?
Yeah, sure. So Gary Strickarts was the scientist with the 40 years experience and a PhD in plant physiology. Sally Kent is the BS in analytical chemistry and she's been teaching water quality surveys, stormwater runoff points, yeast management, watershed studies, et cetera. So it was Gary and Sally that were the two that seemed obvious. And then there were several folks that had, no experience and great interest, which is absolutely fantastic. There was a couple that applied, Dave and Teresa Connors. So they live on Pratt Pond because they've been around for so long. I thought we might be able to get a 2-for-1 if Teresa could get appointed, but obviously whatever you guys think, I just wanted to share my feedback and input on what I saw when I looked at it.
Mhm.
Well, I agree with you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with Stricknartz and Kent. My third, again, most of these people that put their name forward live on or near a pond.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I had somebody from Shore Drive, more or less from an outdoorsman perspective, not so much a analytical chemistry perspective.
Right, exactly, which we need. Who was that?
Edward Bergman.
Gotcha.
But I also had Charles Peterson, 25 Hopkinton Road. I had his name checked as well. So
yeah, because he was part of that, the original aquatic weed control committee. Yeah, I would be fine with either of those for sure.
So would I.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do agree on Sally Kent and Gary Strickschatz, and either Charles Pedersen or Edward Berg, and then it's fine, whichever.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Maureen. Do you want to make the final selection? I always seem to be the odd man out on these appointments anyway, so I'll defer to your decisions.
Well, you need somebody that's fishing and doing things on the lake and kayaking, and I think Edward Bergman would be good too.
Whoever Steve wants, I support.
I'm picking last. I haven't picked a winner in 3 weeks, so.
Well, you just picked a winner.
You just did, Ed Bergman.
I put 2 names out. You guys make the final pick. I won't do it.
So I'll make a motion that we nominate or appoint Gary Stricknartz to the residential seat for 1 year on the Ponds Committee. Brett Simus, aye.
Do we also have to appoint Deb Amarelli from Rec and Mike Penko?
Yep.
And Bill Taylor? Board of Health has to be determined. So I think we have to, Sandy, that's what we're supposed to do, right?
Well, we can do them one at a time if that's what you'd like.
You can do that.
Okay.
Yes, I was going to do them one at a time, but go ahead. If you want to do them all at once, that's great.
No, go ahead. I'll second the motion. Stephen Mattelli and I.
Maureen Dwinell, aye. Unanimous action by the board.
Okay, so that was Stricknartz, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can do
Sally Kent.
Yeah. So I make a motion that we appoint Sally Kent to the Lakes and Ponds Committee. Brett Simus, aye.
I will second the motion. Stephen Mattelli and I.
Unanimous action by the board. And then we have Edward Bergman.
Yep. And for Steve, we're going to nominate or appoint Ed Bergman to the Lakes and Ponds Committee. Brett Simus, aye.
I would second the motion. Stephen Mattelli and I.
Unanimous action by the board.
I was going to suggest the other guy, just so you know.
Get out of here. You are a bum.
Gotta keep my losing streak intact.
Get out of here, you.
Absolutely. I was
get out of town.
You are unbelievable.
And then we need a vote for Parks and Rec, Deb Amarelli.
Go ahead, Steve. I'm not getting myself in any more trouble tonight.
I would make a motion that we appoint Deb Amarelli to the Lake and Pond Committee on behalf of the RecCom. Stephen Mattelli and I.
Brett Simus, aye.
Unanimous action. Concom, Mike Penko.
I would make a motion that we appoint Mike Penko from the Conservation Commission to serve on the Lake and Pond Committee. Stephen Mattelli and I.
Brett Simus, aye.
Unanimous action. And DPW, Bill Taylor.
I would make a motion that we appoint Bill Taylor, the DPW representative to the Lake and Pond Committee for the 1-year term. Stephen Mattelli and I.
Brett Simus, aye.
Unanimous action. We have the Affordable Housing Trust. I think we only have one application.
That's right.
Jane Snellman. How many seats do we have there, Sandy?
I believe we have one seat remaining.
One seat?
Yes,
And she's the only applicant.
that's correct.
Can we make a motion to appoint Jane Snellman?
I'm fine with it. Brett, is that good with you?
Yes.
Okay, I would make a motion that we appoint Jane Snellman, the Affordable Housing Committee Trust, for the remainder of the term. Stephen Mattelli and I.
Brett Simus, aye.
Unanimous action. 5.1.5 interim town manager. I would just like to say that I approached Dennis Westgate and asked him if he would be interested in being an interim town manager, seeing how he's had experience at this in Webster, and I think one in Plymouth, couple in Webster times, rather than taking the time to go out and spending a lot of money to get an interim town manager in here. He's willing to work for an hourly wage for the time he serves as interim town manager. I don't know how you feel, Brett, or you, Steve.
I'm surprised there was no real lead into this, so I wasn't sure what to expect. I mean, I look at, you mentioned Dennis, he is our DPW director, so
Right.
I'm not sure how that would qualify him to be our interim town manager. You mentioned the other towns he worked at, but that was always as a DPW, assistant director or something along those lines.
He was appointed interim town manager in the town of Webster twice.
I was not aware of that.
Yes.
Okay. And how would that coincide with his DPW duties and responsibilities?
The same that the others deal with the responsibilities of duplicate departments.
Well, being more specific, you know what I'm.
I
When you bring in someone to be an interim town manager, you're bringing in. Let's just talk about Upton's history, our historical perspective, as we've done in the past. Someone comes in that is not a member of town staff in any way. They come in. The time that you're paying them is not split between other responsibilities. I don't have any doubt that Dennis Westgate could perform the duties. My concern is he's our DPW director. This is still a rather busy time of the year. I was in town hall the other day and they were opening up bids for, some sewer work, some pipe that needed to be sleeved, or it may have been water pipe. I'm unsure which it was now. But anyways,
after hearing what Scott Van Ralton said tonight, that they were looking to give us candidates for town manager by the 1st of April or the first week of April.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be a long time. You got to go out and advertise for interim town manager and all that. It's an expense.
Yeah. Okay.
Pardon?
How did you propose that work? Did you have a set number of hours you wanted him in town hall? Did you wanted to pay additional wages to him for those duties? Or how do you propose to do that?
He wanted an hourly wage. It would be 10 hours tops, 15 hours a week.
So somewhere between 10 and 15 hours a week?
Yes.
Okay. Brett, you looked like you wanted to comment.
I can understand your perspective, Steve. It seems surprising that this is something that would come up without any context or background. I think it would make sense. I don't know that there's any urgency to get this done tonight as opposed to in 2 weeks. it certainly feels like Steve deserves and is asking for something a little more concrete than, hey, I talked to Dennis and he'll do it and we'll pay him an hourly wage. It seems like it should be a little more structured. I don't want to speak for you, Steve, but it's certainly a reasonable conversation to want to have.
Yeah, I mean, we can post, obviously, with remote meetings, we can post and meet in 48 hours. So
That's fine.
you know, if you want to kick this to a little different,
I mean,
I'm certainly fine meeting off schedule. So if you wanted to meet next Monday and nail this down, that's fine. If you want to, you know, exchange some ideas, or at least let's talk about a, you know, either a formula or a format, you know, if it's going to be X number of hours per day, you know, maybe 2 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever that is.
We can do that. We can put something together. I just thought, you know, it would be a good thing to be able to do and not have to have the expense of an interim town manager for however long. And if it's not going to be a long time, how many applicants are you going to get?
Yeah, and I think my angle is that, I mean, I agree we don't need to hire an interim town manager. And I think that given the amount of time it would take to find an interim town manager, we'll probably have a new town manager already hired, if not at least identified and in the process of contract negotiation. So I certainly don't think that we at any point would need an interim town manager formally unless something unexpected happened. I think that if we have a stopgap where Derek is just gone, he, you know, after town meeting, that's sort of, we have to set him free, which he certainly deserves and is entitled to. If there's a couple of weeks where we need someone to sort of stand on the top of the hill and be ready to just deal with any administrative issues that come in, knowing that they've got to come to the board with any significant decisions, you know, I think Dennis is fine to do that. I would support that for a lot of reasons, but I don't think it's something that we should do hastily or while Steve still has open questions.
No, that's fine. I mean, I could set something up, maybe as individuals, you could speak with Dennis. He could give you more of his background. I mean, he's a certified procurement officer. He's got a lot of education too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my concern is we see, let's just talk about, you know, the situation that we're in right now. Plymouth went through a process and it was well over 4 months for them to hire someone. You know, they ended up having to repost. So what if we do get in this situation? Again, I certainly appreciate the intent and the timeline that has been put forth. However, in the period of time where 3 candidates get put forward to interview for Upton, we don't even know if those 3 candidates will still be interested in a job, may have taken jobs elsewhere, what the situation may be. So we see how quickly we lost 2. So I don't want to rule out the fact that this process may take a whole lot longer than, you know, 1 month. We've never done it that quickly. The initial process was never on that fast a timeline. And, you know, when our former town manager left, our interim Bob Reed came in, and the hiring of Derek, that whole process was probably 2.5, 3 months. So that's the only thing I caution is, again, I appreciate the aggressive timeline, but I'm not confident that it is applicable in the real world.
Well, I think if we do it within 2 weeks or the second week in April, interview our 3 candidates, if it doesn't work out at that time, then we could take a look at doing an interim town manager.
Sure.
Because I know Dennis doesn't want to do it forever either. He's just filling in for a short time.
Okay. Well, I'll reach out and we'll try to get some sort of, I'm going to call it just a syllabus to try to better understand what it's going to look like. And we'll see if we can't get that implemented. And again, I'm more than happy if you want to meet Friday, Monday, Tuesday of next week, whatever the situation is. It wouldn't obviously be a rather quick meeting and we could keep it brief. So
I don't know why we need to have a special meeting. I think we could just put it on the next agenda, can't we? And do we have to do that immediately?
When is the next meeting, Derek?
March 30th. It's supposed to be a joint meeting with the Finance Committee, like we have done in previous years. We've typically reserved the last Wednesday of the month to wrap up any budgetary issues and then to execute the warrant.
Is that good enough? The last Wednesday of this month when we have the budget meeting?
We can go with that for now. I mean, I see it on the agenda. I don't want to kick it too far down the road, so we'll go with that for now. And if we need to do it quicker than that, we can certainly meet.
Okay, is that good, Brett?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
I think we got Derek for a little bit longer, don't we, Derek? What?
He doesn't look too enthused with that question.
I just couldn't unmute. Yes, you have me for as long as you need me. Well,
Within reason.
that's right.
20 hours a week is enough. That's good. Just kidding for people that are listening or recording or watching this next week. That was a joke.
Motion to authorize the town manager to execute proposal for engineering services 2022 sewer system evaluation survey. Have you had a chance to go through the proposal?
I read through this. I don't entirely understand it. I'd like to take a little more time this will be a good excuse to circle back with Dennis and kill two birds with one stone. I'm not sure how much money's left over from the warrant article that we passed a few years ago for $220K. I don't know if this is additional money, so I'd be happy if we could kick this down the road till next meeting.
I think
Through the chair, I'm here to answer any questions you have.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. I didn't know you were here, Dennis.
I'm here. I'm always here.
Find them in the list of 130.
So and Steve has good questions, and I anticipated these. So if you'll indulge me for a couple of minutes, I'll run through this.
Okay.
So this is, even though they call it the sewer system evaluation survey, it is, if you look at the second page, it is actually part of our INI. It is the second phase of our INI. If the board recalls, CDM proposed the first phase of our INI to the DEP, and they accepted it. And we did what's called a flow assessment townwide of our whole system. So basically, they broke the entire wastewater system flow into 6 sub areas. And the idea was to, one, create a benchmark for our wastewater treatment plant so that we knew during the dry season when we didn't have INI, which for those at home don't understand, it's inflow and infiltration, other than our wastewater. So inflow is illegal or illicit hookups from people's basements or gutters that are coming in that we're not anticipating. And infiltration is if we have compromised pipe in the ground during heavy rains and higher water tables, that water is compromising our wastewater infrastructure and adding liquid to our plant that has to be processed. The DEP regulates this and requires that we perform these investigations, identify the amount of INI we have, and then come up with solutions to remedy it. So as phase 1 was done, CDM put together sub areas. They broke the town into 6 sub areas, and they identified a benchmark which tells us what our plant does on a regular day with no INI. It tells us what our plant does during peak flows. And then it broke up the areas to tell us which areas were the ones of most concern that we needed to prioritize in the next phase of our INI. Since then, Ty and Bond has taken over for CDM. And the reason there was a slight delay in this is, one is Ty and Bond made some changes to CDM's original submittal to the DEP, and the DEP accepted them graciously. And it actually saved the town quite a bit of money. And then we had the pandemic, which slowed a lot of this process down because a lot of this work is subcontractors hired by Ty and Bond to go out and actually put meters in pits and camera lines and such. So what you're looking at is a contract that takes us through the next phase of our INI, and it addresses our 2 red areas, which is zones 4 and 5 of our 6 zones. It also addresses some of our other zones and our other concerns, and it takes us through well into the fall of next summer, past this summer, into the fall. And the total contract amount was for $152,000. And I had them break the contract up because we had funding remaining, to Steve's question. We had funding remaining from previous articles to pay for the first $100,000 of this contract, and that's why it's identified in the contract. And then at the town meeting that's coming up, I have put money in our capital article of $60,000 to come up with the remaining $52,000 plus contingency. And that's where the funding is coming from. And I don't want to wait too much longer to get this going because this is time sensitive with the DEP. And a lot of this work is contingent upon the time of year we do it for the type of flows that we get for high water tables. So I really want to execute this contract as quickly as we can, especially since the funding is already there.
Got it. So basically, yeah, you gave me the long answer to the, that was a shorter question, Dennis.
Sorry
So
about that.
I do see the 100K there. So that 100 is left over from the 220 article. Is that what I'm reading?
Yeah, we have money left. We have $100,000 earmarked remaining. And then I put the other 52 was in 60,000 of it's in the article that we're voting on this July, for this July 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm good. Brett, if you'd like to motion it.
I'll let you motion it, Steve.
Got to go back page here. Okay. I make a motion to authorize the town manager to execute the proposal for engineering services 2022 sewer system evaluation survey, which would be the 52,000, or actually it's the full amount of the contract as submitted. Stephen Mattelli, aye.
Brett Simus, aye.
Motion carries. Motion carries.
You're
Motion carries.
You're muted, Maureen, I think.
Oh.
Sorry about that. Unanimous action.
Okay. I think somebody was trying to, Jim, you're trying to answer for her.
I think Mr. Bates is doing that, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Motion to file or accept various grants, which the first one is the technology grant. Is Derek, is there someone here to speak to that, or you, or?
I can speak to it, and Steve Rakitin's on if he wants to add to it as well.
Okay, Kelly.
Hi. So last fall we found out that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is offering a grant for a fiber network. As you may be aware, all our internet to all our town buildings is a modem through Charter, just like everybody has at home, and a fiber network would really allow us to secure and have faster speeds. So the grant is up to $250,000 to, and working with Mendon Upton Regional School District, who has already done this type of fiber network within their schools. We were able to get some quotes to do that for the town of Upton, and it would connect all our buildings, fire, police, the new community center, town hall. We even asked for Kiwanis Beach because of the cameras that are up there, as well as the three schools, Memorial, BVT, and Nipmunk High School, as well as DPW and the wastewater treatment plant. I think I got them all. And we have a quote, and we also have some expenses to switch over from what we're using now. The switches is what I'm being told that they're called. So we will be submitting a grant in the next day or two to with the Commonwealth. It's almost like a community compact grant. For, I think we're estimating at least $200,000 at this point, and we just would like your approval to submit that grant. Steve, do you have anything else to add? Matt Rockerton?
No, that sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you, Kelly.
Dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's.
Yeah.
Except for I didn't thank the technology committee and Steve's assistance with helping us put this together. This could be a huge benefit for the community if we're able to get this fiber network for the town buildings.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good to me. I don't have any further questions.
Brett?
I'm not sure. Did we lose Brett?
Did we lose Brett?
No, I'm here. No questions.
Okay, could I have a motion?
I would make a motion that we authorize the committee to apply for the municipal fiber grant program as discussed. Steve Mattelli and I.
Brett Simus, aye.
Unanimous action by the board. We have 5.3.2 AARP grant. Is Janice Nowicki here?
I most certainly am.
Can you give us a synopsis on this?
I certainly can. So I'll keep it brief in the interest of time. What I'd like to submit a application for the AARP Community Challenge. This grant is offered yearly to make communities more livable for people of all ages. What we are specifically applying for, with your approval, would be for outdoor equipment for the new community center. As we know, and I won't go into the detail, but there's many benefits for outdoor space for our seniors. So we would be looking at purchasing some tables, chairs, benches, and picnic tables. And I actually have worked with the folks from T2 to come up with specific items. The total cost of the grant is $15,000. For those pieces of equipment or furniture, I should say. Kind of on a sidebar, I wanted to give you just a little background because I did some research on this particular grant. In 2020, they received 2,800 applications, but only funded 180. In 2021, they received 3,500 and funded 244. The average grant application was between 11,000 and 15,000. So that being said, I think it's an important starting point for us because the other exciting news that I wanted to share with you going along with the AARP, we received communication from CMRPC that we could participate in their regional healthy aging program, which is through AARP, and it would help to for us to get the designation of an aging and dementia friendly community. I don't know if you remember, I've come before you in the past saying we wanted designation as a dementia friendly community, and for whatever reason we've never actually pursued that. Due to a whole variety of reasons. So this is an exciting project that we're going to be working on. The good news is that it's no cost to the town for this particular project for us to be part of it. The cost is going to be my additional time, which is fine. The important thing is that this could also bring in state funding through AARP to the town to support older adults. So, and the reason that I want to bring this up now, because it's relates to the original grant that I mentioned, if we don't get the national grant, they refer us to the state office. And so we could potentially, if we don't get it during that first round that I spoke about, there's some potential for us to get it through the state office of AARP, which is exciting. There's a whole process, there's a whole timeline for us to become our healthy aging community. I'll be looking for the board's support in this project, also seeking out from the planning board. I've already spoken with Paul about this and the other departments. We're going to start meeting the end of this month to go through the process. It's a short timeline, but it's an exciting timeline. So I guess going back to my original question is I would like your approval, please, to submit that original grant, that first grant to the national AARP for the outdoor furniture.
Thank you, Janice. Any questions, Brett or Steve?
No, I don't have any.
No questions. Good stuff.
I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman.
Yes.
For the building committee, Mr. Flaherty.
Yes.
The building committee was in support of Janice's request for this for this initial grant for the outdoor furniture.
Thank you, Mr. Flaherty. Can we make a motion?
Yep. Go ahead, Brett.
You can do it, Steve. I don't want to make any more mistakes.
All right. I would make a motion to file and accept the AARP grant as described by Janice. Stephen Metellian, aye.
Brett Simus, aye.
Unanimous action by the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Derek, are we ready to execute the 2021 for Upton Dpw and Supervisors CBA?
We are not. We're still waiting to get the final copies that have been signed by the two different DPW unions. As soon as we have those in hand, we'll put them back on the future agenda.
Okay, we'll pass that over then. Thank you. 5.5 is the discussion on the Mechanic Fowler Street 120-day right of first refusal. And we have the right of first refusal started when, Derek? February 14th?
Yes, that's when it was submitted to the town.
Now, have we heard from any boards or committees?
I believe it was Conservation Commission has sent a letter of support asking that the Board of Selectmen keep this on the warrant for discussion at the next annual town meeting.
Any comments? Steve, Brett?
Did they have a funding source for that?
I think the proposed funding source at this time would be CPC dollars. However, there are limitations to how we can use those CPC dollars. Katie Klein, our land use attorney from KP, is joining us this evening to answer any specific questions on the notice of right of refusal and then the 90-day period in which we would have to go ahead and acquire the property if town meeting took an affirmative vote at the annual. But I think we should talk a little bit about how this could be funded if the town were to take that action.
What would be a suggestion to that?
Well, as I understand it, again, speaking to Attorney Klein, if the town moves forward with an appraisal and the appraisal is less than the purchase price, right now the purchase price is $900,000, it would then prohibit the town from accessing CPC dollars. So that is something I think that we have to be mindful of. I do know that CPC has taken a vote and has approved the use of CPC dollars to be used for an appraisal. I know that Bill Taylor and others had issued an RFP to try to identify a company that could do this appraisal within a short period of time, and we haven't been able to accomplish that just yet. But this allows us to pause for a moment to have a conversation on what would be the best course of action of using CPC funds for this acquisition.
Is it possible to pay for a property in part with CPC funds and in part with free cash? Is there any issue with doing that?
Yes. So the answer to that is, as I just pointed out, that if the appraisal comes in less than $900,000, so let's just say we have it appraised and it comes in at $700,000, we are no longer allowed to use CPC funds for that acquisition at all. So we wouldn't be able to subsidize this acquisition that way. So again, it takes us back to the question of whether or not we should order an appraisal, because we run the risk of not being able to access those dollars. Now, if the appraisal came in at, north of $900,000, then yes, we certainly could use CPC funds for the $900,000 acquisition.
Through the chair, this is Chris Scott from Conservation.
Can I
Brett hasn't spoken yet, Chris,
Okay.
but you can.
Okay.
So I clearly can't wait to hear from everybody that's on the phone. I want to hear the public input, comments, conversation, dialogue, debate. I look forward to all of it. I would like to reinforce, as I did the first meeting that Saxon appeared at with this proposal, I fully support putting this article forward on the town meeting warrant. I don't and haven't and won't support a development like this in that location, or frankly in any location that resembles Fowler Street and Mechanic Street. It's a country road. Putting large-scale apartment complexes in these types of areas doesn't make sense. This specific project certainly doesn't make sense. And I said that again, the first time that they showed up at the meeting with the project, I was adamantly against it. I suggested they not spend another dollar. I continue to maintain that position. I'm very grateful for all the time, energy, effort, and participation that folks have had, particularly the folks doing the coordination of all the folks here. It's a testament to what the community can do when they work together. So I'm thrilled to be a part of it, and appreciate everybody being here. So just wanted to share that. And I apologize, Christine, for interrupting you. Please, the floor is yours.
I would like to make a comment also too before we open it up to the floor.
Sure, I will too after you, Maureen. Thank you.
And I have to echo Brett's feelings, because I am in full support of putting this article forward on town meeting. I feel that the people have the right to vote what they want. And I personally don't believe that the selectmen, any selectmen, should stop that process from happening. It's the townspeople money. It's the townspeople that vote for these things, what they want, up or down. And that's our democracy. And Steve, your comments?
Sure, thank you. Yes, I'll kind of tie into a little bit of both of what Brett said and what Maureen has said. When the project first came forward, 320 units is, absolutely ridiculous. Even 200 units that's a big number. But I do want to caution, well, I guess before I say that, I also am in full support of putting the article forward. I don't know if people, for some reason, not sure if somehow, again, that's a myth that's out there that the article wasn't going to go forward. But in any event, I'm in full support of putting the article forward. But I want to caution everybody on this call. This is a state mandate. This is Mass General Law, Chapter 40. And this is something that the town of Upton, unfortunately, we are deficient. We're very deficient in affordable housing.
Yes.
And we're gonna have a problem moving forward, because there's a lot of open space in and along North Street and in along Mechanic Street. And this is a very, very dangerous plan of attack if we're going to keep buying land to block projects. Now, whether or not this is the right spot for this project, I think not, but I also want to remind everybody on this call, look at Lower Hartford Ave. I've been in town 50 years since I was a little kid. And if you look at Lower Hartford Ave, there was nothing up there. That road did not go through. Northbridge built, I don't know if it's 50, 60 houses on the Northbridge side. They built a condo complex up there that's another 100 and I don't know what it is, 120, 150 units. They built a golf course with a restaurant up there. And then the Upton Ridge project is 139 units on our side of the project, not counting Rockdale Hill Circle and other living projects up there. So, we all think that this is really invasive, but the reality of it is, look at Glen Echo Farm. Look at when that project was built. Everybody was upset. We thought there's no way North Street can handle that additional traffic. Now it's built. Unfortunately, the town is changing and the town is growing. It certainly is not the town. You know, when I lived in town as a kid, I mean, it was all woods. There were many dairy farms in town. There were plenty of produce farms in town. You know, unfortunately, that's all gone away. So we have to be mindful that we are on a very slippery slope, because what happens when this same developer wants to buy the 100 acres that are for sale on North Street, or the other 100 acres that are for sale? I don't know the family's name. I believe it's Thomason or Thompson. They've got a parcel on North. You know, what do you do if this project shows up somewhere else in town? Do we just keep buying land to keep trying to block the project? So again, I feel we're really on a slippery slope. But having said that, I want people to know that I'm in full support of putting the article forward. But, you know, I think in this one, we could be in trouble, because again, we are deficient in 40B. And the other thing people need to understand is, Brett, Maureen, we all sat on the board together regarding James Road, a single family, or it might have been Ames. I think it's EAMES, single family home. And I believe Mass Housing, last email that I saw attached from Mass Housing, they approved 8 units to be built on a single family house lot. So, yeah, I don't know what the right answer is, but I can tell you that's going to be the norm going forward. So this isn't something that the Board of Selectmen have the ultimate control over. It's important to note that the state of Massachusetts is who is jamming this, you know, proverbially down our throats. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of big open parcels of land in that section of town. So once you start buying one of them, you better have deep pockets, because there's other parcels that are just going to keep coming up. So I will let it go right there. And again, we can circle back if anybody has any comments or questions regarding that.
Are we good?
Yep, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people I see with their hands up. So do you want me to read them, or can you see them? Or
I can see Tracy Higgins, Jim Bates Jr., Linda Gay, Craig Winefuss, Edward Bergman, Chris Scott, and Alan and Joe. Is that it?
Alan and Joyce, but go ahead.
Oh, it only has the.
More people are going to raise their hands, so you might as well just start at the top.
Okay.
Checking
Let's start
chat.
with Tracy Higgins.
Can you check chat as well? Thanks.
I think I didn't put my hand down before. I mean, the only question I have is, what is our affordable housing plan? Like, this will continue to come up if we don't have a clear plan to build. I mean, I'm not, it's not that I'm against affordable housing, it's that we need to do it smartly. And I'd like us to focus on a plan that puts us in a good space. That's it.
I can just let the group know that the town planner is in the process of identifying funds so that we can update our housing production plan. So the housing production plan expired a couple of years back, and so we know that we need to update that. So to your point, we will be able to be more strategic around affordable housing.
All set.
You know, one other thing, when people make a comment, might be interesting, look at Knowlton Circle, for instance. Is it the type of construction that people are most aggravated with, or is it the location that people are most aggravated with? I guess that's something that would be interesting to note.
Is there any comment to that?
Not sure. Did I see Alan and Joyce next on the list, or who? I don't see who's next on the list.
I have Tracy Higgins there after Chris.
I think she didn't take her hand down, and she already spoke for a second time. But obviously, Tracy, if you'd like to speak again, we're here for you.
I'm trying to get it down.
Through the chair, am I being acknowledged or not?
Well, you have to give me time, Jim.
Thank you, Dunelle.
You are next.
Thank you, dear.
Welcome. You have a comment?
I have several comments.
Well,
The
you're
town of
on.
Upton has made several investments in that part of town. The first one was purchasing the 230 acres on top of Grafton Hill. Then we were fortunate enough to purchase the Steffens Farm, which I was very instrumental with because I had Joe Steffens in my driveway giving me the preliminary plan for the development. Now the acquisition of the parcel of land off of Fowler and Mechanic is the last piece of the puzzle for protecting that section of our community. Fowler, Grafton Road, Mechanic, all the way over. My opinion, strongly supported, and I worked very hard with Mike Pinko and Chris Scott and Tom Dodd. It's the last piece of the puzzle for that parcel of land. I heard what Stephen said. We have other parcels of land out there in North Upton. We have town water out there. We are going to have to start to realize, yes, we are deficient in our affordable housing. Maybe some of those parcels might be eligible for that, but this parcel of land on Fowler and Mechanic is the last piece for the big piece of parcel that the town of Upton bought, the Steffens Farm, and then the one over on Grafton Street, Grafton Road. And I will tell you folks, I'll get back involved because we have to do something about our affordable housing requirement. I'm kind of thinking town of Upton owns land above Coach Road. Infrastructure could be challenging, but we have water sewer. We have to address that, but this one particular parcel of land is that third piece of the puzzle. Fowler, Mechanic, Grafton Road. It's phenomenal up there doing out, and fellow citizens and board members.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Dwinell.
We have Catherine Robertson.
Oh, thank you very much. Folks, be very heartened to hear that I had comments that I was going to make, and I'm going to rip them up in tiny pieces because this meeting has gone long and I know there are lots of people that want to talk. To answer Selectman Italian's question, I'm going to try to be respectful here and give everyone their titles. Yes, as far as the location goes, I don't think it is a matter of location. I can speak for myself on this. I oppose a development of this scale anywhere in Upton, be it Main Street, be it Hopkinton Road, be it North Street, and be it on the, behind Mechanic and Fowler Street. I think when that land first went on the market, I do not abut it, though I walk that area a lot. And I did talk to Mr. Henderson several times about it. And, I think that I and other folks I talked to were sad that it was on the market and would probably be developed as a subdivision. But we didn't see a reason, if a subdivision or some houses were built there, I don't think you would see this number of people on the call. I think the issue was that what this developer has done is basically, any subdivision that went in there would have to follow the town bylaws. And a lot of the other projects you cited, even if they're big, even if they're out of scale, they had to go through the process. There haven't been that many 40B projects in Upton. There have been several, and there's one pending, I think, on Westboro Road. But there haven't been that many, and there have been none of this scale. And so 40B changes the equation. And another reason that 40B changes the equation is because on some of these other parcels, the town does not have the right of first refusal. The town, in this particular process, we can actually, after a offer has been made, we can come in, the town can come in and say, no, we don't want to do that. So I just wanted to make those point of clarifications. And I also did want to point out that there is a lot that we don't know about this project. And so that's one of the reasons I've been very supportive of getting this on the town warrant, because that buys us time to find out some more information about what's planning. I mean, for example, and I do have a list here, we don't know how many apartments the developer plans to build. And I don't think we are going to get that information before town meeting. He originally proposed 320. As Linda said earlier, he said if he couldn't get the 320, he wasn't going to have any interest in it, and he wasn't going to come back, and he did come back. And the current, as Linda also said, the current offer, the letter, the affidavit that accompanied it, said that the developer intended to build more than 200 units. By right, if I'm correct on the town's recent census, it's about 3,000 units. So 6% of 10% is about 200 units, which he can build by right. Maybe a little bit north, maybe a little bit south. That's a number he could build by right. We do not know the size of the surface parking lot. The original plan showed nearly 600 spaces. We do not know the impact of the complex on the town, its finances, and the surrounding watershed, or the roadways. I've looked at comparable projects in other towns and can come up with estimates, but they're based on best guesses because we simply don't know what he plans to do there. We don't know the value of the property. It's my understanding that appraisal should be completed before town meeting. It's my understanding that a proposal did come in, and I think that Mike and Bill are on this call, and they can answer this better than I. So there is a chance that can come in before town meeting. But since the Board of Selectmen don't have to exercise the right of first refusal until mid-June sometime, I think it's about June 14th, then that appraisal may not be necessary before town meeting, although it would sure be good to have. And we don't know the timelines and details. I mean, will there be time to raise grant funding? How much can we raise from private donors? Our goal is 200,000. This is from town residents. We have, very, very few of the people that have come in so far to make commitments. We have about 20,000 in commitments already, and that's after we haven't even started the effort. And most of those commitments haven't, I don't think there's any from abutters. There may be one. I think there's one. Will we have time, to raise money from grant funding? We don't know. And so, there's just so many open questions that we hope to answer. So the bottom line is we would like to get this on the warrant, which I think is the big part of the discussion. Everyone seems in agreement on this, so we can find a resolution to this. And, I just want to also, because of some of the discussions that have been going on and some of the responses I hear, is the decision to purchase this land is not just about open space preservation. If we relinquish control of this parcel, we relinquish control of what goes on it. We will be at the mercy of the developer. We will be forced to negotiate a 200 to 320 unit apartment complex, and have some conditions attached to it, or we will be forced to accept a complex with around 200 units and have no say in the process, have no say in the height, have no say in setbacks. Quite simply, if this does not go on the warrant, we won't have a voice. And I do want to add one caveat, because I've been a little bit maybe glib in saying the town has no control. This project will have to comply with state and federal regs. And it does have to go through the Zoning Board of Appeals, that if it doesn't grant a comprehensive proposal, that, and it'll be litigated, and towns have a really bad record of winning on this litigation. The one board in town that can stop it, but they are bound by regulations and they are bound by law, is the Board of Health. Because if they put in a on-site septic system, which my guess would be they intend to do, because the stub for if they want to connect with town sewer is at Lower Merriam, and they would have to cross Warren Brook, and they would have to go up Mechanic Street, which would be real expensive. And I don't think they want to take on that cost. They did at that December 14th meeting talk about putting I usually say it in cruder terms, but a really big septic system up on that hill. And we all know where the runoff would go, the chemicals that they used to treat the grass, the chemicals they used to treat the roads, would go right into the Warren Brook watershed, because that's all, ledge, clay, and wetlands. And so there's no way for it to get absorbed in the ground, and that would suffocate Warren Brook. So, it's just, there's so much we don't know. And so it's important, and I think there's full agreement on this, to wait until town meeting. And Steve, I just want to tell you, I outlive your time in Upton, because my parents moved here, I believe, in 1960. So I have been here for 60 years, for more than 60 years. So Nina. How's that for respect? So thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you, Selectman Matillion, and thank you, Selectman Simmons, for letting me speak. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Is there someone that has any new information that hasn't been brought forward?
If I might, Madam Chairperson.
Yes.
Alan Rosenfield, Mechanic Street. If I am a bit redundant, I still think that's my right to express my feeling why I am first pleased that all three select persons, in my opinion, realized their role. In this particular instance, it isn't to leave this off the warrant. It should actually to place the warrant for the citizens to have the vote. And I agree with you, Madam Chairperson, that again, that is the purpose of this. This is important for the quality of life in Upton and also for the finances. The quality of life, I was listening to Jimmy Bates Jr., and I thought back when I was a selectman, when Mike Ryan, a neighbor, and Jimmy Bates Jr. educated me on the town aquifer and the importance of purchasing Steffen's Farm. So I understand when Jimmy Jr. is talking about, again, that this is the last piece of the puzzle to protect the aquifer. But quality of life, too. We're talking about potentially 240 apartment units. I suspect that that's going to result in at least 100 or more additional students. My information is that every student that goes to the school here in Upton Mendon, Upton's contribution is $13,000 per student. I suspect there's going to be at least 100 students going from this particular development, if not more. That's $13 million a year, if not more. And, it was interesting to me. I heard, I think one of the earlier speakers saying, well, what's our plan? And I agree. And honestly, respectfully, that's why the Board of Selectmen is voted upon, in order to provide the leadership to deal with issues like this. That's why the town manager is important. We should not be reactive. We should be proactive. Each one of the selectmen is at least a two-term sitting member. And quite frankly, I look forward over the next several months to the Board of Selectmen with the new town manager developing a proactive approach and not a reactive approach. But honestly, I see Mr. Holman, breathing in air about for me to say this, but that's the reality of it, gentlemen and madam. We look to you for your leadership so that we are not in this situation. So again, I'm appreciative that all three of you recognize, in my opinion, what your role here is in government, to allow the citizens to make the vote, and for you not to make the vote for them by not allowing the citizens to have a voice. But I'm really looking forward over the next several months to the year to see what you do from here on out so that the town begins to have a plan to protect itself from this happening. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
You're welcome.
Yep, very good.
There's like 6 or 8 people, so I don't know if you can see them, Maureen. Can you see the people with their hands up?
I have Craig Weinfuss here.
Yes, Maureen. I'd like to make a statement. So my fear is that we're going to quickly turn our small country town into a small city with an increase in population. And to weigh the risk versus the reward, I wanted to ask a question. What are the consequences of not meeting the state's requirement for 40B housing? Are we disqualified from state funding? Do we need to pay a fee? What are the consequences?
I believe it has to do with state funding. Is that correct, Eric?
That's a complicated question to answer,
I
but
know.
the first piece of it that I think, Craig, your question is, what is the town at risk of not having met the 10% affordable housing requirement? So the short answer is the town is not at, and they don't put anything at risk. However, by not meeting the 10% affordable housing requirement, we subject ourselves to 40B projects. And so this is why developers like Saxon Properties have the ability to come to communities like Upton, acquire property, and do not have to abide by the local zoning laws because the town hasn't met the 10%. If the town had met the 10%, we would be in the driver's seat. But you know, we are one of many communities in Massachusetts that do not meet that 10% mandate. I can tell you though, there is new legislation that's coming, or new requirements that is going to require all MBTA communities, and Upton being one of them, having to meet a new multi-family dwelling requirement. Now, whenever that takes shape, if we do not meet that requirement, we will then be at risk of losing state grants. So that's something that our town planner is working on right now, starting to flesh out some of the details of that requirement, because we wouldn't want to put our town in a position that we wouldn't be able to receive multi-million-dollar grants like MassWorks.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer, Derek. I appreciate that. So maybe looking forward, if we do this, we might want to kill two birds with one stone and meet the MBTA requirements and also the 40B requirements. Is that kind of a good thought process?
Again, it's too early to determine how this new multifamily regulation is going to impact the town, but yeah, I think it's something that we should consider. But again, if the town doesn't want to have to abide by that regulation, if the town decides that it's not worth a MassWorks grant, then you don't have to, follow those regulations.
Okay, great. Thank you.
If I could just speak for just a minute, there's another component to that question, Mr. Weinfuss, and actually this ties into something that Alan Rosenfield said as well, talking about the other issue that we have. Just so everyone on the call knows, I went to the budget hearing last night for Mendon Upton Regional School District, and Upton's assessment goes up not at a much higher rate than Mendon's does because of the affluency of the town. And part of that is, of course, not having affordable housing. Your average household income, average household values are higher. So we are getting penalized in that respect as well, just again so that everybody understands all sides of the argument. And there's another component to that. So again, it's MLC. You'll hear it discussed many times. Social media, you'll see discussions, especially last year when there was the override conversation. So Upton is basically penalized every year, and it's kind of not going in the right direction. It's almost getting worse every year. Our minimum local contribution. But one of the questions that I asked after the meeting was over, because I've seen on social media and fortunately I'm attached to a chat group where people are talking about this project. And the question is school and the influx of students. So the apartment at 149 Main Street is a 40B. That did not come before the board. That was negotiated all through Mass Housing and Urban Development. They approved it. I remember we got all the documentation afterwards. ZBA, I think, had some small tweaks to the plan. But that's really, in my opinion, the best litmus test for what you would expect to see for an influx of students. I was absolutely shocked at how low a number it is. I anticipated there'd be, somewhere 15, 20 students. As of right now, and I got the email from Director of Finance at Mendon Upton Regional School District, 5 students, 2 in high school, 3 at Memorial School. Now they suspect that there's probably some younger kids that will be coming up through, but at this point in time, again, that's 44 units, 149 Main Street, 5 students. So it's sad in some ways because I feel like we are losing our family component to some extent. But again, that just gives people something when we talk about impact on the community. That's something that, you know, again, I feel is noteworthy. Just wanted to share it with the crowd. Thank you.
You're on mute, Maureen.
Sorry. Edward Bergman.
I have 2 questions. I'll pose the first one and ask you to answer that, and then I'll pose the second. The first question is, we keep hearing that we're deficient in 40B housing. By how many units are we deficient? And if we accept that many units in town, does the state get off our back?
Well, the units are based on percentages, I believe. So it gets into the whole tax setting and valuation, the equalized valuation of the town, I would think.
I could speak to that, Maureen.
Okay. Catherine?
That's Linda.
Oh, Linda, okay.
Yeah. In terms of the actual housing number, it is a goal. It is a goal that the state has, but there's no deadline. There's no urgency with the state. They are very interested in communities having a affordable housing initiative. And that can take place a couple of different ways. But there's no urgency. I actually spoke to them 2 weeks ago, just to kind of clarify, like, what is going on. And actually, their statistics are grossly behind schedule. They have not recorded any submissions for affordable housing units like statewide. They have not, anybody who's been submitting like, hey, we did an affordable housing project, there's 3 more units, please put that towards our SHI. They admittedly are like, we are so far behind. We originally thought we'd be done by the beginning of the year. Now we won't be done by the end of the year at the earliest. Don't worry about it. Do not worry about it. It's very likely that even if we submitted something recently, i.e. 149 Main, that it hasn't hit the charts yet. The affordable housing and properties that contribute to the SHI are very broad. It's pretty much everything except for a group home. And so the multifamily units, anyone that has an apartment off their house, all those kinds of things can be submitted as affordable housing if they meet the requirements of, being 80% of the, median value of a home. So there's no urgency. The only urgency that comes from, in tandem with an SHI number is the fact that it allows 40B developers to come in and access the community for projects. The way that can be, there's 2, excuse me, just 1 second. There's 2 minutes, 2 ways that can be avoided. One is by a community telling the state, we want to seek safe harbor. We are actively pursuing, affordable housing in the community, which is very obvious if you look at the recent history, especially of Upton. So we are actively pursuing it. We literally apply for safe harbor. Communities are doing it all over the state. And it basically allows us to, as long as we have a housing plan, and when I spoke to them, they said, you can use your old housing plan. It doesn't have to be a brand new updated housing plan. Bring that to us. Let us know what you're doing in terms of this agenda. And then, you're protected from 40B. The next layer of that is inclusionary zoning. That basically shuts down 40B because you add bylaws to your zoning that create an environment where it's unfriendly for them and it's very friendly for other levels of development. And that is a bylaw edit. There, again, communities all over the state are doing it, and they're doing it very quickly because the 40Bs have left the major cities and they are coming to the rural communities with a vengeance. So Developers have done their thing in Lawrence and Lowell and Cambridge, and they are at all of these communities, Lincoln, Boylston, Bolton, but everybody, safe harbor, inclusionary zoning, we set the table. So
Can we let someone else speak at this point?
Yes.
Actually, through the chair, may I, because there are 3 questions that were just asked, and I feel I need to respond to them, just because it's also to do with affordable housing. And if this discussion is going to continue with affordable housing, I used to work in the affordable housing industry, and I would like to clarify some of the comments.
We don't want to get into debate right now. We're just trying to get the comments and information out there.
And
All right, so
I defer to you, Maureen. I'll step away at this point in terms of being involved with facilitating this. Ed Bergman had the floor. He asked a question about how many more units we needed or how deficient we were in meeting the percent. I think we're somewhere in the 5 or 6 or 7%, whatever it is. We're not at the 10%. It goes up every time there's a new house built. That percent would go up. We've gotten a lot of other good information. I think Mr. Bergman had a second question.
I believe he did.
So I will step away, but just remind you of that.
yes, I did have a second question.
Yes.
It was mentioned that there is some requirement to rezone in MBTA communities. The Globe reported that as a requirement to rezone in a 2-mile radius around a train station. Where's the train station in Upton?
So we have been receiving MBTA funds on the cherry sheet for many, many years. And I don't know where that 2-mile radius has come from that you indicate, but the state has determined that Upton is an MBTA community. There are 4 T stops within less than 10 miles to the town of Upton.
All right, the Globe said that the zoning had to be within 2 miles of the train station. So we don't have a train station within 2 miles of town. So does that affect us?
Right now, like I said earlier, we've been identified by the state as an MBTA community, and we are looking into the regulations to determine how that's going to affect the town.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I speak regarding the MBTA issue?
Well, we're just trying to get the comments, Paul.
That's fine.
This is the MBTA. I thought Derek explained very well, and you can. Is it a long explanation?
It is not.
Okay.
We are charged on the cherry sheet because we are a contiguous town to an MBTA station, i.e. Grafton and Hopkinton.
No, Ashland.
Ashland. Well, Grafton and Westboro particularly.
Yes. Thank you, Paul. James Ray.
Yes, thank you. So I'm just going to offer a couple of comments. I think we should be looking at this whole issue as the opportunity that it is. Others have spoken before that there will be plenty of situations where the town has really no ability to control or manage the growth and, the incoming 40B properties. And throughout the state, we need more low-cost housing, and so everybody's got to do their fair share. But in this particular situation, we have an opportunity to say more limiting about where that should be. And I'm a simple-minded person. I just kind of look at Fowler and Mechanic, and they don't strike me as double yellow kind of roads, but a big apartment building like we're talking about will turn them into double yellow traffic type of thoroughfares. And the other thing I will say is I'm particularly concerned about the wildlife impact, and that particular area, the property that's being discussed is adjacent. There are the other open space, and the power lines are contiguous with that as well. It's very near the state forest. There's just a ton of good things for our wildlife in the area, and putting that sort of apartment complex there would not help that. And everywhere in the state that's growing is having pressure on the wildlife. But I think we ought to take advantage of this opportunity we have to preserve that large forested area and preserve the wildlife. That's all I have.
Thank you. I don't, are there any others that you can see, Steve or Brett?
Yes, we've got Al Holman, Chris Scott, James Ray, Stephanie.
We did James Ray. Al Holman?
Here I am, live and in color, film at 11. Several things. But first thing is that I had the fortune or misfortune to serve with Alan when we bought Stephen's property. And we got Stephen's property under several different reasons, one of which was watershed, which was a valid reason, and the other was open space. When we bought Stephen's, we didn't take any money from any trusts. The town of Upton bought it. So we can do whatever we want on that property without any oversight from the state. My opinion is if we buy this property, please, let's buy it with our money so we can do with it as we please. If we buy it with trust money, the only thing we can do is walk on it. So if sometime down in the future we want to put bathrooms on it or something like that, we wouldn't be able to do that. Number one. Number two is I can speak to the septic or Board of Health issues that go along with this property for obvious reasons. There are three options. Option one is to put a septic system on site. That would require a septic system that would take somewhere between 60 and 80,000 gallons per day. At 10,000 gallons, the state of Massachusetts DEP gets involved in approving it, and they have all kinds of regulations that have to go along with it. Most of that property is wetlands. Only about 25 acres of it is usable. The rest of it's either ledge or wetlands. The other option is to put an on-site facility. Now that would cost somewhere between, I'm saying $1 million, $1.5 million. Now that's just a rough guess. There's no, I don't have any specific information on that. That's option number two. Option number three is for them to run the sewers up from where it's closely located. Quick guess on that is somewhere about $1 million, $1.5 million. Plus they would have to have a pumping station. And over time, we would pick up responsibility for the pumping station because that way we could guarantee that it would be maintained. The Board of Selectmen has really done a really good job on the last pumping station because they opted to pick it up, and now we can guarantee that that will be maintained properly. Kudos to the board. So the long and short of it is there's no cheap way. Now, if they put a septic system on site, they have to drill a well that can be no closer than 100 feet to the septic system. Now,
Al?
Yes?
I don't think we want to get into the nitty gritty of developing the property.
Well, I'm just, okay.
But that's, you're trying to develop the property farm, and that's not.
I'm just giving you the information, the things that will go into it. So the bottom line is that.
Well, could we do this at town meeting, Al?
Sure, we can do.
Yeah, and I don't think it's true.
But we're not going to debate.
Okay, fine. Okay, I won't say any more about the septic system. So I would say that number two is the traffic problems there will be significant, and I believe that it'll have a great impact on reducing the desirability and the rural outlook of the town. So I would hope that it goes on the town meeting.
Thank you, Al. Yeah. Chris Scott.
Hi there. I have several comments. First, I want to apologize for speaking out of order. And my second thing is for the Conservation Commission, our letter to the Board of Selectmen was we would be in favor of having them use their
exercise their right of refusal.
Yes. I do know other people who are here on the list who will do other conservation issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Catherine, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I only wanted to clarify some of the 40B stuff, but I would get into the Al Holman rabbit hole and start over-explaining something that, you know, people don't really want to hear about at this meeting. So Al and I will join the same club. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't see, do you see any others on?
I see Stephanie and Mr. Bates Jr. I don't know if they have more to say or they have spoken.
Stephanie?
Yes, I am Stephanie Garner at 170 Mechanic Street. I guess I get to follow up with what Al had just said about the traffic. I own a farm. We have a farm here with horses, and sometimes the horses get out and we have to actually walk our horses with our kids and all that to Stefan's farm and whatever trails on our road. I mean, what are we going to do about traffic when all this comes about? There's going to be a ton of traffic with the 600-ish more vehicles or parking spaces in this complex. It's, you know, it's a small, windy road. We all have children on this road. I know I have 2 young children who want to go out and ride their bicycles and walk the road with our dogs or whatever. And to me, it's just, it's insane. You can't walk on this road now. I know a couple of people I've seen talk who do walk this road, and I can tell you right now, if you don't live on this road, then people are flying and they're not doing 30 miles an hour. They're speeding down because it's a cutoff. So what is this going to include? I mean, how is it going to be policed? Are we going to widen the roads to make sidewalks? Obviously not. With all this complex going, it's just, I don't understand why this complex or 40B housing would go in on this spot, I guess. So a clarification would be great if anybody has any, but to me, I don't think it's a great idea at all. That's it.
Thank you, Stephanie. Jim Bates Jr. Is he there?
I think to answer Stephanie's question, the whole thing with the 40B is that's the whole mystery. It's out of our control. It's just kind of dropped in our lap. So that's what this is all, you know, all of this back and forth, all the dialogue is about. And I mean, ultimately, it's going to come down to town vote. So I would encourage you to attend the meeting. I'm sure it will be well attended. If obviously this online forum has, looks like 107 plus the other bulbs that I see up. So it's probably 120 or 130 people on this call. So thanks for your comment.
We have Paul Flaherty and Donna and Bill White, Maureen, and I'm only stepping in because I'm not sure you can see what I'm saying.
I can't. I don't see those. How about Donna and Bill White first? Not there.
Okay, they lowered their hand, so I think it's just Paul.
Paul Flaherty.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
with all due respect, I understand this is a hot button issue, particularly with the respect to the people who live up here. But I think going back to the very beginning of this meeting, Mr. Simas made the point that the question here was, are we putting this on the ballot or bringing this to the town meeting, or are we not bringing it to the town meeting? We have spent several minutes here basically having town meeting at a selectmen's meeting. So absent our good friend, Mr. Andrews, and if I could bring this to a town meeting question, Madam Chairman, I think it's time that we move the question and decide if the board is going to bring this to the warrant or not. Thank you.
Thank
Maureen,
you.
Oh,
Clarity. I think we answered that question in the beginning, that we were all in favor of not putting it on the town warrant.
Yeah. Yes, I would say we already answered that. I think the only thing I would add, I mean, if there's nobody else that is ready to speak, the only thing I would add is the town attorney was on. I saw her pop up on my screen. So I think it would be important for us to let her speak if she has anything that we may need to know or that the residents may need to know. Other than that, I'm good with the topic. I'm good to put it forward.
Yeah, this is Catherine Klein. Thank you for acknowledging me. I don't have anything to add that Derek and some of the other, people speaking have stated this evening. If anybody has questions on, the procedure, procedure under chapter, under the chapter lands, I'm happy to answer those. I know the appraisal is a question, and if people have questions on that, I'm happy to answer. But no, I don't have anything further. I think let the people speak, I guess, is where you are at this point.
Thank you, Catherine. Kate. I think we're ready to take a vote on the article.
Christine LaChiavo just raised her hand.
Hi, I'm here. I just have, sorry, of course, as soon as I start to talk, the dog.
You're muted again, Christine, if you can unmute.
Am I good?
That's good. We can hear you.
Okay. I just wanted to ask a question. Do we have any type of committee or anybody who's looking into how we go about reaching the max that we need to have to meet the requirements for the 40B6? I mean, what are we doing as a town so that we can start making our way to meet that standard, and then this stuff in the future wouldn't really happen? Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't know if we as a town have a committee, or do we have something, people looking into different ways of how we can start meeting the standard that the state is requiring. I don't know if anybody can answer that question, or if it's, a question that can be answered.
We do have an affordable housing trust. I think Mr. Holman is on the affordable housing trust. He can speak directly to what they've been doing previously to address this very issue. So I think we'd start there, but I would say that there hasn't, but like a lot of communities, this isn't unusual what we're experiencing, being beneath the 10% measure of affordable housing. So what we're experiencing, again, isn't any different than a lot of other communities, but we always will be open up ourselves to risk by not meeting that 10%. So I don't know if Mr. Holman wants to address what they're doing in the Affordable Housing Trust.
I'll address that very simply. I just got on the Affordable Housing Trust because up until I got on board, there was only one member. So we now have enough members to take some action, and we will probably start jumping into that. Right. You're on it too. So we finally have three of us. So we can finally three of us now, so we can finally do something or take some action. I'm a firm believer in affordable housing because
yes, I totally agree.
Because it changes the flora and fauna of the town. So I think it's important.
I think it's important as well, but I think location of the affordable housing is just as important. You know what I mean? So, and I don't know. I just think, like everyone else has said, the location where this specific apartment complex, 300 units, that's a lot. I think Mechanic Street is not the right place for that. I mean, if we were talking, 30 houses, development or whatever, that's a different story. But when you're talking about 200 to 300 apartments, it really, in my mind, has nothing really to do with affordable housing so much as the number of units and the traffic and all of that. But I also, at the same time, realize we need to address meeting the affordable housing. It is important. So that's really all I had. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Christine.
So Marie, we can talk about that later. I mean, we'll have a meeting and be available to answer any questions that the board may have once we get together for a meeting.
Thank you, Al.
Yep.
I think we're ready for a vote. What happened to Brett?
I'm not sure if we lost Brett again or if he just
Nope,
he's right here.
I'm not sure where I go.
Okay. I don't
I'm
think
not on your video. I think you can probably only see 4 people at a time or something. So
I think so.
I think the important thing, and hopefully we have put the residents' minds at ease. We're not ready to execute the warrant, but I think we are in total agreement that we are putting the article forward. So I'm not sure if we need a formal vote for that or not. Derek, do you have any lead on that? Do we formally vote that we're putting the article forward? Is that what we need to do at this time?
I mean, you're right, Steve. I mean, we're not scheduled to execute the warrant until March 30th, but to your point, if you feel that given that we have over 100 folks in attendance, that you want to put them at ease, so they'll can go to sleep tonight knowing that this article will be on the warrant, that would be entirely up to you tonight.
Okay.
I would like to go forward with the vote to put it on the annual town meeting warrant.
Okay.
How does everybody else feel?
I'm fine making a motion to that effect.
I would entertain that motion.
Okay. I would make a motion that the Board of Selectmen put forward the article regarding, I believe it's 0 Mechanic Street, at this May's annual town meeting. Stephen Mattelli and I.
You're on mute, Brett.
sorry, Brett Simus, aye. It's Article 23.
Article 23, and that's a unanimous action by the board. Thank you all for coming and for all your input.
Thank the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
And we will see you all in May.
We will. Next, we have to discuss the annual town meeting warrant. Are we going to go through our capital articles?
Well, if I could just jump in real quick before you start to deliberate. When you go through the articles, many of the articles have already been presented through our department budget presentations. So I'm not sure exactly if there are any specific ones you'd like to speak more about. I would say that there are 2 articles that we haven't had any discussion on. One article is being advanced by the planning board. They're holding a public hearing next Tuesday to amend the zoning bylaw as it relates to large lot frontage.
Yeah.
So that's one. And again, the planning board will be holding a public hearing on that next Tuesday. So that would be a great place to get more information. And then there is an article 25 to accept Summers Circle as a public way. So that's a very standard administrative article that we have when we accept public ways, which was approved and negotiated with the planning board when that subdivision was approved. And then the only other article that is before you is Article 21. This is an article asking the town to accept Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 32, Section 4, 2B, which basically, in summary, allows members of our fire department to buy back retirement time from their time as on-call firefighters. So I believe it's a 5-to-1 ratio. So for every 5 years serving as a call firefighter, you can buy back 1 year of full-time service. So other than that, all the other articles have been presented to the board in either through the budget discussions or board or committee members presenting before you.
Do you have anything in particular, either Brett or Steve?
When I saw this article, two things, and obviously we're not going to have a number on snow and ice, so we don't need to talk about that tonight. Derek, you had forwarded us the most recent update to that request by the planning board. I'd like to kind of get a better understanding of what they're trying to achieve or what they're trying to eliminate with that bylaw change. Certainly we'll put it forward, but I'd like to get some education on that. So next Tuesday will be the time, where I can learn more about that. And the only other thing I guess I would have to say about the warrant is that particular Article 21. What is the long-term cost? We know OPEB is a problem. We're talking about buying back retirement time. What is the long-term cost, and how many potential firefighters or police officers do we have that would be looking to utilize something like this? When I see a bylaw change like this, I kind of think to myself, well, what's in it for the taxpayer? So ultimately, I guess I would ask that question, what's in it for the taxpayer?
So this article would only affect one of our full-time firefighters today. Certainly down the road, if some of our call firefighters came on to be full-time career firefighters, they certainly would be able to take advantage of the statute if it were to pass a town meeting. So your question relative to OPEB, the bottom line on OPEB, if an individual retires from the town has to fund 50% of their retiree health insurance. So that's for any individual who's vested in town, and it takes 10 years to be vested in town. And so that's the OPEB cost. As far as the pension, so the pension is based upon the number of years of service, your age at the time of retirement, and your salary. In this case, it'd probably be your top 5 years serving in a municipality. So that one's a little bit more difficult to predict because every person who retires, those variables are different for each person. So, but there certainly would be a pension cost related to an individual who was vested in the system, and use this article as a way to achieve a number of years to get vested in the system.
Could I ask a question, Derek? Now, if they're part-time and they go full-time, are they considered new employees at that time that can buy back their time?
So they'd be a new employee when the town hires them, but if an individual served, we'll say 20 years as a call firefighter using the 5-to-1 ratio, they would be allowed for every 5 years serving as a call firefighter, they can buy back 1 active year of credible service. So, that using that scenario, that individual who served 20 years would be able to buy back 4 years of credible service that they could put towards the 10 years they need to get vested.
And, okay. I had something else too. What was it?
Chief Bradley just raised his hand, and he might have something to say about this.
Chief Bradley, you're on.
If I could, through Madam Chairwoman. So
Yes.
This article rewards people for their volunteer or call service in the fire department. I look at it as a recruiting tool to get some younger members, some call service that may want to move on to full-time. And it's much like people are able to buy their military service back. So they're able to pay into the pension system for the years that they served in the military. you talk about costs, I think there can actually be a savings here, because you could have somebody that can retire a few years early at a higher rate, and you can bring somebody in at a lower step when they retire. So there are some cost savings, and I think it's really a way to reward people from coming in and serving the town in that call role, and then transition them to full-time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And this, Derek, doesn't actually kick in until they become full-time, correct?
Yes, that would be correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just have some reservation, just concerned that we would create a loophole where on-call, let's say somebody has 20 years on-call service, they could get any position within the town, buy back their time, and then be considered a full-time employee for a tenured amount of time. And it, wreaks havoc on our OPEB liability, which is, already, I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million. So I guess that would be my only reservations about a bylaw like this. I just feel like buying back time, that's great for employees, but it's rough on the taxpayer. Again,
so what happens in that scenario? Sorry, Steve, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's all right. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, we can answer that question, right? So what happens if somebody's been an on-call firefighter for 30 years? How does this affect that person in terms of what they could buy back if they got a full-time job with the town?
So using the 5-to-1, that'd be.
I think they can only buy back maximum of 5 years. So they would be able to buy back 5 years. And again, they need 10 years to be vested in the system. So they would be halfway there.
Okay. Like I said, that would be, I don't have the numbers in front of me. That would be my reservation, is how many people are there out there that could potentially, again, if we're creating a loophole, I kind of want to know what my vulnerability is. And I don't want to find out that there's, 50 individuals out there that can then get a job in town as a librarian or a custodian, buy back time, and in 2 to 3, well, I guess then it would be 4 or 5 years, be entitled to a full municipal pension, including health insurance. So again, that's my reservation.
Yeah, it should be pretty easy to figure that out for somebody.
Yeah, we can pick it up again next meeting, I'm sure. I don't have any other comments about the rest of the warrant at this point in time. Again, we're going to schedule to discuss it again on the 30th.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Flaherty.
may I just make one sentence comment?
Yes.
This article only applies to part-time firemen, period.
It says police officer as well in the article.
Intermittent police officer or a reserve.
It does not apply to librarians or other town employees, as was just alluded to.
That is correct. But if that person then comes in, gets a job as a librarian, the time can be bought back, is what I am alluding to. But again, we can debate this during the FinCom BOS joint meeting. I don't want to, the meeting's already 3 hours long, so I don't want to beat it up, but that's what I would want to know is, are we creating a loophole? That's basically the question in a nutshell.
I think we can get the answer for that meeting, so.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Town managers report.
I will keep this really short, given the fact that it's 10 o'clock. So just as a reminder, we have promotion ceremony tomorrow at 6 p.m. at Town Hall. We will be promoting two patrol officers to the rank of sergeant and one sergeant to the rank of lieutenant. And then moving forward, I just want to let folks know that we got a Chapter 90 allocation in at $315,000 for FY23. That's a typical year-over-year allocation that we received. I do expect to see some type of amended Chapter 90 allocation, given that the state is flush with money. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we are scheduled to meet jointly with the Finance Committee on March 30th to wrap up any budgetary items. But looking at what's going on with the school district and some of our other line items, I feel that we're doing extremely well, to the point that we may be able to look at some of the savings in this year's budget and reappropriate those savings over to the roads article. Remember, the roads article is at $200,000. In years past, it's been north of 500. So that's something the board may want to consider over the next 2 weeks, where to reappropriate some of those savings that have been found during this budget process. Penny, any questions? That's all I have.
Thank you, Derek.
Could you please, Derek, just share, I think it would be a nice opportunity with folks here to share the names of the 3 officers up for promotion?
Oh,
or Chief Bradley, if you have them off the top of your head. I don't want to put anybody on the spot.
Chief Bradley still here?
I will jump in, Mr. Town Manager.
Please
So
do.
we will be promoting current Sergeant Michael Benjamin to the rank of Lieutenant, and current Patrol Officer Matthew Rankins to the rank of Sergeant, and Patrol Officer Mason Brown to the rank of Sergeant.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chief.
All set?
That's all I had. Thank you.
Do we want to make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I have nothing else. Everybody all set?
Yes.
I would make a motion that we adjourn the meeting. Stephen Metellian, aye.
Brett Simus, aye. Thank you, folks.
Maureen Grinnell, aye. Thank you all for coming.
Have a good night.
You too.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.